Hey everyone, Skyman here with another video. Now, I know that I've been away for a long time, but I'm back to my channel now to bring you guys more regular content from now on. So why not kick things off with a little bit of controversy from AMD? As you've probably heard already, AMD recently announced that the upcoming and highly anticipated Ryzen 4000 series chips sadly will not be compatible with X470 and B450 motherboards and any AM4 based motherboards that came out before, such as, the X370 and B350 boards. On the screen right now, you should be seeing the official image from the actual blog post on AMD's website, which gives us all of the details about the upcoming processors and their support for older AMD motherboards. As you can see from this image, the future processors with Zen 3 architecture will only be supported by X570 and B550 motherboards. The official blog post says, and I quote, "Will the Zen 3 architecture be compatible with AMD socket AM4?" And they say, yes. AMD officially plans to support next-gen AMD Ryzen desktop processors with the Zen 3 architecture on AMD X570 and B550 motherboards. This will require a BIOS update. Specific details about this update will come at a later time, but we're committed to keeping you up to date. We've also updated our official chipset CPU support matrix to take future Zen 3 processors into account, which is below. And then you can see the image that I literally just showed you. It then goes into a little bit more detail about why they will no longer be supporting the previous boards. What about X pre-500 series chipsets? So, for example, those other boards which I mentioned earlier in the video, so the I think it's X470 and X370. And the official response to that from AMD is AMD has no plans to introduce Zen 3 architecture support for older chipsets. While we wish we could enable full support for every processor on every chipset, the flash memory chips that store BIOS settings and support have capacity limitations. Given these limitations and the unprecedented longevity of the AM4 socket, there will inevitably be a time and a place where a transition to free up space is necessary. The AMD 500 chipsets are that time. And the very last question and answer / piece of information that AMD have for us on our website is a question that says, how long will socket AM4 last from here? And AMD's response to that is, this will depend on the schedule of industry input-output I/O technologies. Such technology changes typically require adjustments to the pin count or layout of a processor package, which would necessitate a new socket. We have no specific details to share concerning this roadmap or timing right now, but we know it's important to keep you updated, and we will. There has been a lot of anger and backlash caused by all of this statement from AMD, and I think this is because originally B550 was meant to release at the exact same time as X570, but it just kept on getting delayed, and no one heard anything from the AIBs, the third-party motherboard manufacturers such as Asus and MSI. And it's also the fact that many people buying mid-range Ryzen processors are most likely going to be on a budget, so buying a much less affordable X570 motherboard simply wouldn't make sense to them, especially if they're pairing it with something like a Ryzen 5 3600, which I believe is one of the best-selling ones, which is only a £150 processor. Whereas the cheapest X570 board I could find is about that same £150 price, so spending just as much on a board as you are on the processor doesn't really make sense for a lot of people who are on that kind of budget. So a lot of these people just decided to buy a much more affordable B450 motherboard, assuming that AMD would continue to support that. As their advertising always implied that they would be supporting AM4 long into the future, until at least 2020. So I guess this is their earliest opportunity to sort of bail from these 4th generation and 3rd generation boards. I have an X570 motherboard, which I have paired with a Ryzen 7 3700X. And I very, very nearly bought a B450 board just because of that, cheaper price. And I can completely understand anyone who would have paired, a B450 board with not only just a 3600, but also a 3700X, 3900X, and I think they can support a 3950X as well. Although I have to admit that it must be really disheartening to people who hear this and have previously bought a B450 board hoping that they'd be able to upgrade either with the 4000 or 5000 series of Ryzen processors. But then again, I don't think there's many people who are planning on upgrading, every single generation. And this is something that Intel got a lot of backlash for when they officially announced that the 9900K would not work with Z170 motherboards, but there are videos out there which actually shows that, with a bit of modding, it works. I hope that AMD learns from all of this and continues their support for X570 and B550 motherboards way further into the future, and will hopefully think about the BIOS memory capacity of, the B550 and future, 600 series boards. That's all from me today though, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and feel free to click that subscribe button if you liked the video. Thank you, and catch you in the next one.